We left off talking about matter, and so we're going to continue today talking about the states of matter and why they exist. And we did see this slide earlier on in our lectures, solid, liquid, and gas. Okay, those are our three states of matter. Remember, there is one more called plasma, but we're not really going to spend too much time on that. Solid, remember, has a fixed shape and fixed volume. Definite shape, definite volume. Liquid, the volume doesn't change. It doesn't matter what container you put it in, but it will take on the shape of its container. And gas is both. It will take on the shape and volume of its container. It will expand to fill it up. So we're going to look at why the different how the arrangement of the molecules is in the different states of matter and why that exists, so that we can understand why the three states of matter do exist. So you can also remember that a solid is packed into position. They're sort of locked into position, very organized. A liquid is kind of jumbled about, but it will take on the shape of its container. And a gas, as you can see, will fill to expand its entire container. Okay, solid, just sort of little shaky. Liquid, much more shaky. And gas, crazy time, crazy party. So let's explain why the three states of matter exist. The kinetic molecular theory, kinetic means motion, molecular is referring to the molecules. Okay, so the little teeny tiny particles are constantly in motion. That's what the kinetic molecular theory talks about. And we're going to make some assumptions for gases. These things aren't necessarily true, but we have to make assumptions for our purposes in order to do some calculations. We're going to assume that the particles are separated by empty space and that their volume is insignificant to that space. In other words, the particles are so small that they basically don't exist. Okay, there's no attraction between them. That's not true at all. But it's very insignificant in comparison to the space in between each individual molecule when it comes to a gas, because remember, they're very far apart. They are in constant random motion, and I'll show you the Newton's cradle when you get to class. It looks like this. Watch, we'll do a little magic. And there you go. There's the Newton's cradle, okay? This is an example of an elastic collision, which basically means that one piece of energy gets transferred to the next molecule, to the next molecule, to the next molecule. All the energy is completely transferred, okay? And so I'll show you this in class and get an idea of what elastic collisions look like. But basically, when it applies to gases, the molecules are in constant motion, they're always moving, and they're crashing into each other. Well, then the energy is transferred from one place to another. And that's what keeps the motion going. How much kinetic energy, or how fast the particles are moving, is dependent upon temperature. The higher the temperature is, the faster the molecules are moving. If you have it doesn't matter what type of gas it is, if it's at the same temperature as another gas, then those molecules are going to have the same amount of kinetic energy. So this theory explains why gases are the way they are. It explains why gases can be compressed. We can push them together because their particles are very far apart. It explains why gases randomly move. If I were to spray some perfume or some cologne over in the corner of the room, it wouldn't stay over there. It would spread throughout the room, and eventually everybody would smell it. And that's because it's highly concentrated in the corner, and so it'll do something that's known as diffusion. It will diffuse. Diffusion is the tendency of molecules to move from areas of high concentration to lower concentration. So spray it in the corner, very high concentration. Those molecules are constantly moving and flowing. They're going to bump into each other. The gas molecules that are already in the room, the air molecules, will push those cologne molecules over towards us, and eventually you'll smell them. Somebody in that corner of the room is going to smell a lot more strongly than someone in the far corner of the room, right? If you were to poke a hole or get a hole in your tire, or if you were to spray a spray can, like a paint can, then effusion is taking place. That's different from diffusion. So effusion is when gas escapes through a tiny opening in its container. So if you have a hole in your tire, that's going from high concentration to low concentration. It's going to come out the hole. When you're spraying a spray can, you're creating a hole in the can by opening it up at the top. Okay? In regards to effusion, there is a law that you need to know, and it's called Graham's law. And the long, complicated thing that it says is the effusion of a gas is inversely proportional to the square root of the gas's molar mass. And you're all looking at the computer right now and going, huh? Let's put it in plain English. The bigger the molecule, the slower it goes. A tiny sports car is going to be able to maneuver and move a lot more quickly than a big old 18-wheeler, and it's the same with gases. Gases will effuse slower or escape out of the tiny hole slower if they're bigger, right? You can only fit maybe one molecule out of the hole at a time versus a smaller molecule that would fit out the hole multiple molecules at a time. So it's going to escape a lot faster. This explains why when you have different gases in the balloon, they will shrink up at different rates. So if you blew up a balloon with carbon dioxide, it's going to shrink relatively slowly. If you blew up a balloon with hydrogen, which is much smaller gas, okay, and we'll learn how you tell that later, so you don't really need to worry about it right now, then the balloon would shrink faster because it does escape through the plastic, okay, through the latex of the balloon. There are tiny holes all throughout the balloon, and gases can't escape through that. That's why balloons don't stay up permanently. So these molecules are constantly moving around, and they collide with each other, and they collide with objects, and that is the basis for pressure, okay? The more collisions you have, the higher the pressure. If you don't have any gas particles at all, then you have no pressure, which is called a vacuum, okay? A lack of collisions would create a vacuum. Atmospheric pressure, the pressure around us colliding with us all the time, changes as you go from low elevations all the way up to higher elevations, right? The atmospheric pressure decreases as you go up the mountain, and that's because there's less oxygen, there's less gas molecules at the top of the mountain, so the atmospheric pressure would be lower because the collisions are decreased, the number of collisions are decreased. And the way we measure pressure is with a tool called a barometer, okay? And you can see an old-fashioned barometer there in the picture, but today's modern barometers look a little different than that. And of course, whenever you have pressure, there are some calculations that you're going to need to be able to do with gas pressure. So the SI unit, remember the international system for pressure, is the Pascal, named after a scientist who did a lot of studies on air pressure. And sea level air pressure, standard air pressure, is 101.3 kilopascals. So remember, kilo means 1,000, so that's 101,300 pascals. There are other units of pressure that you need to know about. Millimeters of mercury, that's based on the old barometer here. You can see this right here was a column of mercury, okay, and there was a pool of mercury, so that's why one of the units for mercury or for pressure is the millimeter of mercury. And there's also atmospheres, okay, and so you need to memorize the conversion factors between the different types of pressure. 1 atmosphere equals 760 millimeters of mercury, which is 101.3 kilopascals. So let's take a look at a sample problem. It asks you to convert from 1,000 millimeters of mercury to atmospheres. So remember, always write what you know. 1,000 millimeters of mercury. And what you want to know is how many atmospheres that is. Write what you know again, times and then a line, but the unit you want to cancel on the bottom. How many times have you heard me say that so far this year? So we want to cancel millimeters of mercury, and we want to get to atmospheres. What is the conversion factor between millimeters of mercury and atmospheres? Let's look back. So atmospheres to millimeters of mercury, 1 atmosphere equals 760 millimeters of mercury. 1 atmosphere equals 760 millimeters of mercury. So now you would just run it through your calculator. 1,000 divided by 760 gives you 1.32 atmospheres, rounded off to the thousandths place. Okay, let's do one more. 75 kilopascals to millimeters of mercury. Write what you know and what you want to know. Write what you know again, times in the line. We're canceling kilopascals, and we want to go to millimeters of mercury. Looking back, 101.3 kilopascals equals 760 millimeters of mercury. So 101.3 kilopascals equals 760 millimeters of mercury. So we do 75 times 760 divided by 101.3 gives us 562.69 millimeters of mercury. Remember, these units are what are canceling out. This cancels out up here, and that's why you're left with what you're looking for. So remember, dimensional analysis, your new best friend. So let's talk about temperature and pressure, okay? As you increase the temperature, the kinetic energy of the molecules is going to be a lot faster because temperature and kinetic energy are what are related. And as a result of faster moving molecules, you're going to have more collisions, right? Think of bumper cars in a ring. The faster they could go, the more collisions you're going to have, and with increased energy, okay? And so more collisions means higher pressure. So just remember in that order. The faster things are moving, the more collisions are going to take place, therefore the pressure is going to be higher, okay? And it is a proportional thing, and we usually measure temperature in Kelvin in chemistry. And remember, you can convert from degrees Celsius to Kelvin and back again. And the Kelvin scale is proportional. If you have 100 Kelvin and you raise the temperature to 200 Kelvin, then the amount of kinetic energy is also exactly 2 times because the temperature is 2 times higher. So therefore your pressure would also double, okay? In the next lecture, we're going to take a look at liquids. So we're done talking about gases. We'll talk about liquids in the next state of matter.